Hello and welcome to the Top Agent Podcast. My name is Costa and I chat with top industry leaders in real estate to discuss their successes, tips, and marketing strategies. This podcast series is brought to you by Web for Realty, the leading provider in real estate marketing tools to grow your business. If you're looking to attract leads, build relationships, and close more deals, go to webforrealty.com to learn more. All right. Hello. Today I'm speaking with Stacy Barenfuss. She is the founder and CEO of Catalyst Group and the creator of the Limitless Realtor Circle, a professional training program for realtors. Stacy started her real estate company at the early age of 19 and has continued to scale her business past the seven-figure mark, becoming one of the top performing real estate teams in the state of Idaho. So Stacy, welcome to the Top Agent Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So you started off your real estate career at the young age of 19. You know, most people are still, in school or just figuring out what they want to do in life at 19. So let's start there. Like, how did you start off in real estate? What captured your interest? And, what's your story?
Yeah. So it's funny. It actually started when I was a senior in high school. I was kidding around with a couple of my friends and applied at a local real estate resort office near where I lived. And they ended up hiring me part-time. And that's really, when it started as far as, being introduced to real estate, seeing the industry. And, what captured my attention immediately was the gap in the industry and the opportunity to provide a better experience to the consumer. And so that was really attractive, and the opportunity to build a business and a life that had no limits. So that's, always been my mantra is, whatever you want to go for, you can achieve. And so that was really attractive to me. So I started as an assistant at that real estate office and then went on to get my licensing when I was 19 and started my company at that point.
Okay. So you started your own company right off the hop at 19?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Right. Now I didn't, of course, they don't have a lot of guidance for real estate agents, which is why, I want to create what I've created. And so I didn't set up the, proper tax entity because I didn't know right away. So I did have a couple of years when I paid too much in taxes, but we got that all figured out a few years later and, went on from there.
Okay. So that's interesting. So how long were you interning at that office?
So I worked at that office really it was about a year. So short of a year, and then went on to get my licensing after that.
Okay. So you mentioned something, so you saw there was a gap in the industry. So just for some context for some of the listeners, so you're from Idaho. So I don't think I've ever had anyone from Idaho on this podcast. So what does the real estate market look like there? How many agents approximately are in that market? And if you can expand on what you mean by the gap, what gap did you see specifically?
Yes. Yeah. So the gap that I saw specifically was the interaction between the real estate agent and the customer and the lack of professionalism and systems. And systems is, what creates the standards, of practice. So that was the gap that I saw. And in Idaho, it's interesting. So back in 2011, just to give you context, our average price was about $188,000 average sale price. Yeah. And today it's right over $400,000. So, it's jumped in a huge way in the last 9 years. There's about 9,000 agents in our MLS, which is basically that southwestern central Idaho area. So that's the count as far as agents are concerned.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Thanks so much for sharing that. So you came into real estate with, like you said, no formal training or education. Now you actually train realtors yourself. So what do you think is missing from the current way realtors are educated and trained?
Yeah. So quite often you go to real estate school to get your formal licensing for a couple of weeks. maybe a few weeks, and you have to rely on, a broker coming into the school to educate you on what they offer as a brokerage, services that they offer. And that's really it. You have to rely on their programs. Maybe they have some training to guide you and to basically, put your entire career, that risk on that someone's going to follow through with that. And so the gap in that training is really what my program provides, whether you're a seasoned agent or new agent, is doing business planning and creating that structure up front. So you know exactly who, you need to call and what you say and what that schedule looks like, because it's not, presented in that way to set you up for success. Some people don't even know that they need to get a headshot. It's very basic stuff, but just to have that comprehensive understanding, because it's overwhelming in the industry, right? You can create anything that you want. And in doing so, there's all these options and all these different directions in which you can create business. And so that can be very overwhelming. So just simplifying that whole process is highly needed, in my opinion.
Makes sense. So is it fair to assume that the most of the agents that you train are more like newer agents, or?
Interestingly enough, it's about 50-50. Okay. So the experienced agents typically are, producing over 10 to 15 million a year. And we're talking more about, it's interesting. We're talking about the same thing because they didn't have the infrastructure set up in the beginning. So we're talking more about, how do I get my time back? How do I get my schedule under control and stop being like a Pop-Tart realtor, which is, anyone asks for anything and you drop everything and run to them at any given time.
For sure. So you mentioned processes, which is obviously very important in real estate and any business, frankly. So are you able to share some practical tips on how an agent, maybe without any structure or processes, like just simple things they can do to help themselves with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a few really important things that I would suggest. The first thing is, sitting down and really asking yourself what kind of business you want to create. Because there isn't that structure, it's really easy to just dive in and get going. And if you can be more intentional about, this is the kind of income you want to earn. This is the kind of business that you want to build. Maybe you want to focus on new construction or buyers, sellers, try to get specific in the beginning and stay focused on that. I like to tell the agents, don't pursue more than 3 types of lead generation at one time. So, if you can just choose, one or no more than 3, builders, like I said, buyers or sellers, then each day you can plan your schedule around those efforts instead of each day, kind of waking up and having everything at your disposal. You have that really focused approach. So that would be, a practical tip is just to, slow down so you can speed up long-term by having that plan in place.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. How important would you say is like niching down and like getting specific, as you said, with like a target audience for realtors?
Really important. And it's something that's severely lacking. And that's a way that you can really differentiate yourself, is showing your clientele that you are the expert and you're able to also, perform at a higher level because that like the back of your hand and the ins and outs, the tips that a lot of people might not know. So you can really differentiate that way.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of like what a niche would look like? For example, can you just say buyers, or is that too broad and too vague?
If you can niche down to first-time home buyers, if you can, niche down to luxury buyers or, investors, it's so crucial to your long-term success because you start to build that book of business, right? And those buyers are likely going to network and have relationships like themselves. And so that's how you can start that referral long-term business and also, have those repeat buyers with that focus.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. So you touched on it. You say, or you advise realtors you work with to focus on, 1 to 3 primary lead generating methods. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep, that's correct.
And so, a common question I get from my clients and other realtors is, how to generate leads. Like, there's obviously so many ways to do that. So, what works for you in terms of, generating your leads and keeping your pipeline active and full?
Yeah. So the thing that I recommend is choose a way that you like. And, if you can get a way if you can choose a lead generation system, that you love, you're going to be successful long-term, more so than if you were to, pursue cold calling and you absolutely hate it. So if you can build systems that support your true self, your authentic self, the better you're going to do. So what I say is, ask yourself, what are the things that I like to do? Do you like networking? Are you social in that way? Do you prefer to, be more like, are you more introverted? Well, if you're more introverted, maybe social media or something that is, on the website lead generation process, like that would be more of your jam than if, the other person, for example, was social, outgoing. So take time to figure that piece out. So, as far as our lead generation is concerned, I, for whatever reason, love calling complete strangers. Like love that cold calling. I'm more apt to do that than sometimes follow up with my past clients. So it's just funny how, we all have these strengths and weaknesses. And so playing to your strengths and making sure you have, whether it's an administrative support or another agent on your team, you don't have to have a team, but just in your network that you guys can work together in a way of, working in your strengths. Like I had said, calling those cold leads and the other person calling those referrals. So just an example on that. There are so many ways to generate leads. Like I said, I started out cold calling and door knocking. I didn't have a network. And so the way that I built my business was by calling expired leads, because quite often they had, unfortunately, a poor experience. And so that was a way, that I could really impact them and uplift their perspective towards realtors. And so I would call, and if they didn't answer, I would go by the house, door knock, I would leave some information and collateral. And then the key is I would put a follow-up system in place so that they kept hearing from me until they said no, or we were doing business together. So it's just another way to differentiate yourself is in the follow-up, because that's a ball that's dropped most often.
Yeah, no, that's so key. Like you said, just doing what works best for you. And it's sort of like the law of attraction. When you do that, you'll end up in a lot of cases probably work with clients that you get along with better, and that probably leads to more referral business and repeat clients as well. So I think that's very key. So I'm curious to hear about this actually. You purchased a development and built 11 custom homes. So, walk us through that. Like, how did you come across this opportunity? Like, how did you secure the funding to make this happen? And like, what did that do for your career in real estate?
Yes. So it's an interesting story, one that I love to tell, just because it shows people, that you truly can do anything, because I hadn't done that before. And if you continue to be resourceful, you can truly pull anything off. And also how when you're focused on an outcome, it's clear how you can, not only attract it, but be purposeful in your actions each day. So it's a random, introduction where I was actually looking for commercial space for my real estate team or in our office. And there's a, local company that had some office space available. So I reached out to their office, and the owner ended up answering the phone and invited me by the office to show me the inventory that he had available. So I stopped by, and the commercial spaces that he had didn't work for what we needed. And he mentioned, just in passing, I have this kind of pain in my side infill project right in our downtown area that he wants to sell. And of course, my ears perked up, and I asked, him to tell me more about that. And after he did, just because in this area, there isn't any available land. So it was shocking to hear that there was something available. And I said, if what you're telling me is true, these numbers add up the way you're saying, I'll have an offer to you by tomorrow. And so I ran the numbers, went and looked at the property and ended up writing an offer and had no idea where I was going to come up with the $1.3 million. But I knew that I could figure it out. I had time on my side in that the final recordation of the plat was not complete. And so I had, a good 60 days that I knew of to put this plan in place. So I exhausted all options. I called every lender, every person that I knew. And while I have a lot of experience in representing builders and developers, I haven't actually done it. So the conventional banks, they want 50 to 60% down. And I was looking to obviously purchase the land and do the construction. So that it just wasn't working out. And so I probably heard no for the first 60 days. And of course, that was the timeline that I had to work with. And I ended up getting another 45 days because the city was, delayed in different ways. And one of my friends just called me up and we were doing a check-in and said, you should call this guy. And he has these people over in Seattle that might be able to help. So ended up doing that. And they were able to finance me for the purchase of the ground and the construction financing. And so that's how everything, was put together on the front end. But I literally up until like 30 days before I was supposed to close, I did not know, right? It was pins and needles of, is this going to fund? And I just kept showing up every single day. Like, I am going to figure this out and we are going to close. Like, just kept focused on that. And ended up closing New Year's Eve, 2018. And we were off to the races to start building. February in 2019 was when we broke ground on the first house.
Nice. That's incredible. Wow. I love that story. And, it sort of leads to the next topic I want to talk about, which is mindset, and just that hunger and determination, which you clearly have, just not knowing how you're going to come up with the financing and all that. But, that didn't stop you. So that's so amazing. And that's sort of what the theme of your coaching business, Limitless with Stacy B, seems to be centered around, just like mindset. And so what are some practical tips and advice that you can give to realtors to help with mindset, which is so important in life, not only just in real estate?
Totally. Yeah. And I think just number one, taking the focus from our external world to our internal world. And what I mean by that is we're so quick to rely on, someone else's opinion of us or, their expertise. And if we can just realize, like, literally the gold is within us and bet on ourselves instead of, giving that power away to other experts and things like that. If you can just rely on yourself in that way, bet on yourself in that way, that's really at the core of what confidence is. I think a lot of people think that, people are either confident or they're not. And if you research anyone in history, anyone that's successful, they all built that confidence. They all started by deciding one day that I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to believe in myself, 150%. And that's going to waver. This is like a daily practice, right? Is just, reminding yourself that we're doing this. And if anyone's going to be successful, it's going to be me. So I think that's just that first tip is deciding that you are going to bet on yourself. It's not a process. It's a moment in time. Decide and you will be shown, what those next steps are. Obviously decide on what those next steps are for your path. As far as, mindset is concerned and creating the type of business that you want in real estate, understand that you can truly design whatever business you want to, and know that whatever you decide to do, whether that's, you want to make a certain amount of money or you want to build a certain type of business, the focus on that outcome combined with clear action steps that you do every single day, you will get to the goal that you want. And so I think, the point in all of that is to go for what you want. Don't settle for what you think you can do. Like, really go for what you want. Really bet on yourself and go for that big goal, that big stretch goal. Because when you complete that and, you have that win, those wins build on that confidence, and you create such strength that no matter what life throws at you, you'll be able to pull through.
Love it. Yeah. And that's so key. And, speaking of confidence, real estate, it's such a competitive industry, as you know. So what are some things realtors can do to sort of just elevate, their standards and their confidence and just provide superior service to their clients?
Yeah, I think, the first thing is to treat every interaction like you were with the queen or the king. I know that's kind of a funny thing to think about, but if you think of that high-end experience for someone, it's such a great way to elevate your game compared to the competition. The other thing is try to look at everything in your business and make sure that it is complete, and understand that you only have one chance to make a great first impression. There's a lot of times where we'll be out showing houses and a realtor will show up and, they're in their workout clothes. It's just like little things like that. Like, dress like you're going to meet the king or queen. Like, how would you dress? Would it be different, or would you be in your yoga clothes? Like, if someone answers that, I would be in my yoga clothes, like that. Okay, we need to have more conversation. But the point is just, to present yourself in that way, because every agent interaction, every client interaction, it's an opportunity to impact them and grow your business. And if you could look at it that way, you naturally start to show up as a leader. And if you show up in that way, you'll be met with opportunities equal to the way that you're playing full out. Like, if you're only playing halfway, you're going to get opportunities like that. But if you go all out, you're going to get big opportunities.
Yeah, you're right. That's so true. And it all sort of comes back to, your mindset in a way, and like what you want to get out of your business. It's correlated to what you're putting into it and how you feel. So that's all so important. Question for you. So, I want to go back to sort of like the lead topics. That's always a popular topic with my listeners. So especially for newer agents just starting out, like, what are some ways to nurture your sphere of influence? Like, everyone has like their family, their friends, that initial group of people. Are there any specific ways or things that you do to just stay top of mind with people like that?
Yeah. So what I recommend is make a list of at least 100 people. And if you can go to 250 people, make that list. And you can do it in an Excel spreadsheet. So, something basic. It doesn't have to be a CRM if you're really just starting out. Put it in an Excel spreadsheet and reach out to each person. So my magic number is, if I want to really grow my business, like one huge, step, for example, like 1 year I went from 6 million to 32 million in production, like a growth like that. My magic number is 20 contacts a day. And so if you make 20 contacts a day and focus on 2 appointments a day, your business is going to explode. So with that, go through your list and reach out to 20 people a day and say, I just want to let you know that I'm in real estate. I'd love to, share what I'm doing. Would you like to get together? If they can't get together, especially in the times that we're in, just educate them about what's happening. Make sure that you have their up-to-date contact information, and follow up with an email thanking them for their time, on the phone, and send them something of value. So just think everything that you do, adding value to the other. So always add value, always, be the person that is contributing consistently. So that's the process for that individual. But when you're on the phone with that individual, ask them, are there 1 or 2 people that that I need to know that I might be able to help, buy or sell. And a lot of times you'll be met with a no, right? Maybe they're at work or, they don't have a lot of time. Well, what you want to do then is you want to ask them if you can follow up in a few days. And what you do in asking that is you create this game where all of a sudden your person that's, in the sphere of influence database is involved in helping you create your success. So the key though is schedule a follow-up so you are reminded based upon that timeline that you promised, and follow up with them in a few days, and make it, your requirement that you're getting 1 to 2 referrals from each person in your database. Because if you set that clear intention, ask the right questions like that, they want to see you succeed, right? They believe in you, they're in your circle, and that can quickly turn into business now.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's great practical advice. So one step further then, so you're saying 20 contacts per day, that's your list. You're starting with 100 people, like in 5 days, theoretically, you should go through that list. So like, what's next after that?
Yeah. So the follow-up is there. So really intend and follow through to get 2 people for each call, right? Because all of a sudden that just doubled. And so then you have that pipeline. So always think about your pipeline. What you're doing today is for 60 days from now. And that's another thing that realtors, and in any sales business, but something that you can lose sight of is what you're doing today, is not just for today, right? It's in the future. So just keeping that in mind, you'll make sure to keep your pipeline always full.
Yeah. And for you, you already said you like the cold calling, sort of that old school approach. With that initial reach out to those 100 contacts, you're doing that by phone?
I am. Yeah. Phone and text message most often. We have a rule on our team that text message and email is not a form of connection. So especially now, because everyone relies on that as a form of connection. So that's another way to differentiate yourself is, it's fine to text and try to catch them at a better time, right? But just following up truly by phone and connecting in that way is really important.
That's a good point for sure. So, touching or, you touched on it a little bit. So email, text messaging, you don't consider, or emails at least, you don't consider like a point of contact. What about technology? Like are you and your team utilizing technology, and how do you see technology maybe changing the way we do real estate in, the next 5 years?
Yes. It's funny. I would probably answer this question so differently, but I watched that. Have you seen that show? It's so funny. Show on Netflix, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah. Saw it last week, actually.
Okay. And I am just so just standing back kind of my phone slept in the kitchen last night. But to get back to your question, for us, we have definitely been, in-person referral based type business and new construction. So we have planned communities in different areas where we, work with developers and builders. So it definitely has been more, foot on the ground type of, old school business, if you will, versus the, Google pay-per-clicks, social media marketing, and all of that stuff. Going forward, especially because I saw that show, it's an opportunity for all of us to use social media to build our businesses. So I think realtors can do a much better job about having a strategy because, posting listings and that sort of thing, it's like, that's not the way to really use social media to get buyers and sellers and to help buyers and sellers. And so we're doing more, with video. And I think that's another thing agents need to do is make sure you're capitalizing on all these amazing tools that we have, social media, the videography, and all of that, because it positions you in a strong place going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm the same. After watching that documentary, I was like a little paranoid myself about everything, which I encourage everyone to watch that, and if you haven't already. But I think touching on social media, I think it's more important, like for brand awareness, because you're right. Most realtors you see on social media, they're just posting like their newest listings and things like that, which in like 99% of cases, like no one really cares because people aren't in the market right now to buy or sell. So like they're seeing this listing, it's like, okay, they sort of just, go through it. But, when you talk about things more like personal and getting, for people to get to know who you are and like what you're doing their day and maybe some family stuff, I think that's more important than like the actual listing stuff,
Yeah, exactly. And I think just going back to that point I made a little bit ago, just always add value. So it's like, when you're posting, ask yourself, like, is this going to help someone in some way with their real estate plans versus it being like, here's my new listing.
Yeah. You have to be more thoughtful too. Cause to capture someone's attention nowadays, even for a few seconds, like in just a constant stream and noise that people are always bombarded with nowadays, you got to be thoughtful in your messaging too. And like you said, it's got to provide value to your audience. So totally. Yeah, some good points for sure. Stacey, I do want to be mindful of your time here. I do end off each chat with what I call the top 3. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number 1, your favorite real estate or business book?
I would have to say The Success Principles.
Okay.
It's not basic, but there's a lot of great, obviously, success principles there. And it was the first book that I ever read, when I was getting started.
Yeah, perfect. Number 2, your favorite vacation spot?
Oh, it's not much of a vacation spot, but I go to India I did go to India pretty often. And I really enjoy going to O&O Academy, which is a wisdom school. So wow. I would say that's that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was looking up Idaho, and it looks beautiful in Idaho, just like the valleys and
yeah, so much hiking and biking. Yeah. So yeah, it kind of feels like we have those opportunities right outside our doors, thankfully. So
that's awesome. And lastly, if you can go back, what's the one thing you wish you knew when you were just starting out in real estate?
I think it would be the business planning side of things and just really, working that plan of who to call every day, what to say, and sticking with that consistently. When I first started, I did that, but I did it in like 10 to 15 different ways, like open houses, builder, was one of everything. And so I just think having that clear business plan along with that, niching down like we were talking about is what I wish I would have known.
Perfect. And if someone wanted to reach out, learn more, get a hold of you, where's the best place to do that?
The best place is my website, which is limitlesswithstacyb.com.
Perfect. I'll add that in the show notes. Stacey, thank you so much. I'm so glad we're able to connect. I think a lot of people are going to get some good tips and a lot of value in this episode. So thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
I'm so glad. Thank you for the opportunity.
Amazing. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yes, that would be great.
All right. Take care.
Awesome. You too. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to the Top Agent podcast by Web for Realty. By the way, we're providing exclusive promos to our listeners. Visit webforrealty.com/topagent and get your first month on us. That's webforrealty.com/topagent to get your first month of service completely free. Until next time, over and out. Peace.